everybody. This is James with Geek Astronomy, and I'm here with David Volante, owner and creator of Volante Designs, the premier geekware in this galaxy or anywhere else. Hi, David.
Thank
How
you
are
for
you?
having me. I'm good. I'm well. Thank you very much.
Good, good. Let's get started. When did you decide you wanted to be a designer?
Uh, the decision to be a clothing designer is different than a decision to be a designer.
Okay.
The decision to be a designer wasn't really made by me. It just happened. I designed things. I've been designing characters since as long as I could hold a pencil. Um, but the decision to be a clothing designer, in high school, I wanted to go to fashion school. I decided against it. I went through college doing animation. And then as soon as I got out of school, I said, I don't want to do animation anymore, but I do want to design myself some clothes. And from there, it was just first designing for myself. And then uh, I had some friends who asked for, their own versions of things. And I started to get into making clothes for other people.
So, what would you say is your biggest influence? Is it science fiction movies, books? What?
I would say, I mean, it's largely video games. I've always said comics and video games. Comics would be the sort of initial inspiration for character design for me, but the the things that I tend to make clothing and the actual like things that actually inspire me to make clothing would be games that I've been playing for the last 20 years.
Which is why we had Assassin's Creed.
Which is why we had Assassin's Creed. That's what started the company as it is now. That was the game I think that made that sat on the other side of the fence between realistic, believable clothing and video game character design. And by the other side of the fence, I mean uh, we we kind of we kind of sit on the side of as far as I'm concerned. There's uh, costume design, character design, and then there's clothing. And if you look at like this could only exist in a game universe on one side and the gap on the other side. I like to sort of sit in the middle um, with my designs. So it's like clothing that feels like it could exist in another universe, but also feels comfortable to wear in this universe. Uh, and to me, Assassin's Creed, when it came out, the way the characters were designed, the way it was articulated within, it was sort of grounded in realism, but it has a somewhat fantastical design, especially for the main characters, the assassins. It's like there's historical fashion. It's in every part of the character design, but it's twisted to meet their aesthetic of this kind of pointy, sinister. The hood. A hood was not something that anybody really would have worn, at least not in that shape or form in the 1500s Italy or 1100s Jerusalem. But it met their aesthetic and they sort of tied it in with the historical fashion of the time. And that's something that fascinated me about their design because it's always been something that I've been interested in as well, tying historical design into something modern.
I mean, sticking with the Assassin's Creed, I've always liked the way your designs for your Assassin's Creed line could be worn every day. I
Mhm.
mean, you could see somebody walking down the street wearing that and not be, oh, what the hell are they wearing? Like you see in Comic-Con, people in full costume walking around. This is just a coat that somebody is wearing walking down the street, and it looks pretty damn cool.
Part of the intent for me is, or sort of something that I noticed, or I was able to articulate in a particular way at New York Comic Con this year. Was wearing our Seco jacket, which we just launched just before the show. It's kind of inspired by historical gambeson, so it's got this kind of padded cloth armor look. But it's also got modern amenities, as is it, a Napoleon pocket for your phone and that kind of stuff. Um, and I was wearing it around in New York and then wearing it into the show. And um, I think for me, there's things that look one color in one light and different color in a different light.
Yes.
Um, And in the same way, I try to design something that when you are on the street, it looks like clothing, and when you're at Comic-Con, it looks like a costume. And it's the same kind of transformation based on context, based on environmental context, and that's kind of that's the ideal. Like a jacket that succeeds at fitting in both worlds because of and looking like it fits there because of the context that it's around is kind of that's when I know I've sort of landed right on the fence in between the two sides, you know.
So what is your like dream franchise that you'd like to do a line for?
Um, that's a very hard question to answer. It changes over the years. We've done a lot of we've had partnerships with a lot of franchises that I have loved and wanted to do, and I've pursued them heavily, and and gotten to do those. So Star Trek is great. I love doing Star Trek products. I have always I've watched Star Trek since I remember watching it with my dad when I was like 8 years old or whatever. And so it's always been sort of a part of my life. And so being able to contribute to that universe, I feel like I've put my own mark on that universe, is a part of why I love doing licensed products. If it's something that I love working, like I love experiencing, then I want to be a part of it. This is a way that I can do that. I'm not a game developer, but I do feel like I can connect and expand on a given universe. And so, I have a few others that I'm looking at, some that are uh, more niche and some that are a little bit more mainstream. I love working with the niche ones. And really, honestly, if I love the thing, it doesn't matter what size the brand is. If it is something that I or somebody like Willow, somebody in my company really loves, there's probably something worth doing there.
Now, do you find yourself leaning more towards the historical looks or the future looks?
Um, in our own original collections, I've sort of tended more towards futuristic. I think when we started the company, it was um, more historical fashion inspiration, a little bit more on the fantasy side of things. But as I've grown into where I am now as an artist, I feel more like I want to. A part of me wants to. I love futuristic fashion. I love seeing it in sci-fi, movies and all that. Like I love seeing it, and in movies like even Minority Report or Blade Runner or any of those things, you see all these characters in the background that are all wearing this cool futuristic style. And to me, the only way that we could ever have a tableau where you walk out onto the street and you see everybody in cool futuristic clothing is if more companies start making cool futuristic clothing.
True.
We have to make it in order for people to be looking like that. And if we aspire to have a fashion, like have the modern fashion be what we currently see as future, we're going to have to start getting there. So that's a part of my push towards making more futuristic things. But I've also got our original collections. We're splitting them into 3 collections now. And the difference is we have the Augment collection, which is futuristic and sharp, kind of corpo futuristic. Cleaner lines, cleaner sort of style, more on the like in the reflective glass of the skyscrapers sort of style in a cyberpunk universe. Then we have our off-world collection, which is sort of inspired by it's inspired by the idea of calling Star Wars used future as an aesthetic. It is this sort of rugged utilitarian, but asymmetrical and not modern in any way. It is sort of futuristic, but it took place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But that to me is like it's dirty. It's built to be beaten up. It is this like rugged and utilitarian, but futuristic at the same time.
It's meant to be lived in. Like Star
Yeah.
Trek is so sterile looking. And I
Yes.
think that was the appeal of Star Wars when it came out because everyone was used to 2001 and Star Trek, where everything was neat and clean. And then Star Wars and Alien came out, and it's like, look, space is dirty. People have messed up
There's a
clothes. What's going on?
there's a pretty good chance that, I mean, people are driving junkers now. They're in the future. They're gonna be flying junkers through space. You know, like the idea that everyone was gonna have a clean, shiny ship. It it's hard to resonate in the same way as like, well, actually, some people are probably going to be working on their ships by themselves. You know, like Millennium Falcon, I think changed the way people could see how like, oh yeah, actually that feels like I could be doing that. I could be working on I work on my truck now. I could work on that Millennium Falcon. Like
Right.
that's what made it relatable. Um, in a similar way, I think it's nice for us to have some products that are designed in that way. Um, it also allows me to do sort of a little bit more of the historical side, because Off-World as a name for our collection, to me, opens up the ability for the concept of, if you're traveling the planets, there's going to be a multitude of cultures and all of these different kinds of styles and all of this stuff. It allows to me to take from a lot of different aesthetics and then fit them into one sort of under the umbrella of rugged and utilitarian futuristic. Um, so we can do the sort of Jedi stuff, but we can also do the Battlestar Galactica, you know, sort of military uniform, or the Dune, like Atreides, sort of clean cut, like that kind of stuff is all fits within that collection in my mind.
So you put out a poncho recently, the black poncho. Where
Yeah.
does that fit? In what aesthetic?
So
Because I
I
love
think
that. That's gorgeous.
currently that would fit in our off-world collection, I think. When it came out, it was in our Ninja collection, which has had a ton of products, and almost all of them ended up in the off-world collection because the concept was futuristic based on historical Japanese fashion and sort of the myth of these Japanese characters, samurai ninja, as well as the actual, you know, sort of mythological creatures um, of Japan, like folklore. So that coat is or that cloak is called the Namahage. A Namahage is a type of demon that lives in the, you know, in the mountains, and it tends to wear this waterproof. It's called, I forget the name of course, now on the call, I'm not going to have the name of the actual poncho that it's based on, but it's this like straw waterproof coat that is a historical, because it's made of straw. It wicks the water away. It was used as sort of a raincoat, you know, 500 years ago. So this is our futuristic take on the same concept.
Okay. So the company is now what, 12 years old?
Will be 12 in April.
12 in April. So you went from being just this company here in the States, now you're global. How is that affecting the product? How has it changed?
It it hasn't made a huge change on the actual product at this point, because for me the product is like maintaining our quality, and the way that we have always done is, that's the reason I did it in the United States, is because I was able to oversee that production in a better way. But moving to international production allows us slightly better margins, but more importantly, better price points. I've always wanted our product to be as accessible as possible while maintaining the sort of quality and construction level of construction and detail that I want to put into these designs. Uh, the the quality and the level of detail require a ton of work and a ton of skill. Um, and that means that they cost, you know, it costs, that cost is that skill is reflected in the price point. And as factories close down in the United States, even now, it's worse than it was 20 years ago, but there's still at least one factory that is able to make our stuff in the United States. But they may not last forever.
Right.
And we have to be aware that all clothing manufacturing is going to move overseas. At least with any amount of any kind of clothing with any kind of detail or um, or uniqueness of design style. You know, in the United States, we have factories that are capable of making nurse scrubs or t-shirts or hoodies or those kinds of things that are all exactly the same cut. They're all based on the same thing. We could, you know, the factory, if the factory can make 5,000 of them, they're willing to do it. But for us, for something, for, you know, designer weird stuff that we like to make, the the skill level or the it's just not here. We just can't do it.
Right. I mean, and we were just discussing a little while ago the cookie cutter clothing. I mean,
Yeah.
every company is producing the same thing. So when you have something unique that stands out, you know, it's hard for it to catch on for other companies to go, hey, wait a second, they've got to look. Why can't we be doing that? And
Yeah, and it's hard to find factories that are willing to do that sort of work because it is extra. It's more work to do it the
right,
way we like to do it. It does, in my mind, it means that you are able to wear something that feels unique. Uh, we don't intend to become this massive company. We do, you know, we have you know our ambitious goals, of course. But for me, if you're wearing a Volante design piece, you're unlikely to run into somebody else who's wearing a Volante design piece. Um, if you do, as far as I'm concerned, you guys are already friends. And you know, like that's how it will. That's how I feel like that's how it will continue
mhm.
for quite some time.
See, I know I personally love wearing my Discovery jacket out to the grocery store
Mhm.
and getting people to, even if I'm not wearing the, you know, the Delta Shield on it and I'm out walking around, people go, is that a Star Trek coat you're wearing? And I feel a sense of pride that, okay, you're part of a community, you know what
Right.
I have on. And I
Yeah.
like that. And there are other companies out there, and I'm not naming any companies, that are also producing kind of geek clothing, and the quality is just not up to par. And I mean, there's a difference between if you want to spend $100 on a jacket or you want to spend $300 on a jacket. And honestly, I'd rather spend $300 on a jacket that I know I'm going to have 10 years from now
Mhm.
than a jacket that may or may not fall apart in a year.
Yeah.
And so we
There's a
did a
market for
great
both.
job.
You know, there's a market for both. Like you know, it the in order to create products at the fidelity that we create them at, there is a cost associated with that. And so I'm aware, you know, like we have no intention of being, that's what I mean. It's like we have no intention of being the only company that does
Right.
this. But we do have an intention of being the only company that does this at the level that we do it at. Mostly because we have the grit and sort of stubbornness will, you know, required to do the hard work of doing it. I think it often doesn't mm, often for companies who are thinking at it from a business perspective do not see the payoff in doing it the hard way like we do. But I didn't come at it from a business perspective. I came at the whole concept of this company from the perspective of somebody who wanted to feel a true connection to the universe that I love, whatever that is, Star Trek or Assassin's Creed or whatever. And part of that true connection is making something that feels like if the main character was wearing it, they could do the things that they are expected to do in that universe. Uh, which is to say, with our Devil May Cry jacket, when you put on that jacket, you should feel like you could fight demons. You know, like you should be like, yeah, sure. If I had to carry a sword on my back and I had to go fight demons, like, and there was an outbreak of demons or whatever, like I could do that, and this thing would take a beating. It would survive through quite a few battles, and so that kind of like, I think that doesn't exist in a lot of the other sort of that connection to the universe is, I think, the most valuable thing because when you put on a jacket that makes you feel like you can fight demons, any other thing you have to do today is easy.
Right.
Any other thing the world throws at you, our current modern world, there are no demons for you to fight, but there's plenty of stuff that you're going to have to deal with.
Right.
But when you feel that kind of power, like it's easy. The rest is cake.
Now, I know, going off of what you just said, I know personally when I dress a certain way, I will have a fantasy in my head. You know, I'm in the future, you know, like if I'm dressed Blade Runner-ish, I'm in the future.
Right.
And, you know, in my head, I'm playing out something, even if it's just driving in my car, listening to a soundtrack. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
You're
nice
feeling it.
to dress the part. We all do it. Now, just going back a little ways in regards to something you said about running into somebody wearing, you know, something like you own. Have you ever run into someone just casually on the street, not at a convention, wearing anything you've designed?
Um, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I say that because we live up in East Hampton, Massachusetts. We're in a relatively small town. It it's not the sort of place, it's a small town.
Right.
If there is somebody else in this town that's bought some of our stuff, like, I mean, I do run into people who actually have recognized me, um, especially after COVID, when we
Mhm.
made masks, because our masks were distributed very locally as well as sort of across the country. So a lot of people, I'll see those even now. Um, so I'll look and be like, oh, that's our design because we did it in a weird way that nobody else did it.
Mhm.
Part of that is because of the materials that we had on hand. Like when everything was shut down, you couldn't buy new fabric or materials. So we just had what we had in the studio and we built something based on that.
Mhm.
So in that way, our design is unique and very recognizable just for those masks. And some of those people have bought our jackets, and I've probably seen jackets, but in general, our product I've seen. God, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that
No,
question.
it's a good question. I just it's just what we do is more in more of a sort of metro vibe. I think you're more likely to see it somewhere in a city, but that's also because you're more likely to see 100 people at the same time walking down the street. Like in
Right.
New York City, you look around, there's just a higher density of people walking around.
Yes. I mean, I can relate. I live in a small town. The actual town I live in only has 900 people. And I mean, but I'm also right outside a college town, Bowling Green. So, I mean, still relatively small.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I could relate to that. But like I said, I get recognized for the guy in the Star Trek jacket. So,
yeah.
so one final question, because I promised this was going to be 10 minutes long and I've already gone way over that. Where do you see the company in 10 years?
What an impossible question.
I'm so
Um,
sorry.
no, I what I would love to do, I would love for our company to have um, wholesale agreements. I would love to see our products more places. I what we currently are known for is being the jacket company. We've made jackets for over 10 years now, primarily as our main sort of product category. Um, and part of our push for international is we can make jackets in the United States at a reasonably good sort of cost, but we can't make clothing, shirts, pants, hoodies, those kinds of things here. Um, so I would love for us to become a clothing company. I'd love for people to be able to wear our products at any time, not just in the winter when it's cold out. Um, so because I think that there is, for me, even in the summer when I want to have that feeling of power, like I don't always have the option. I've made myself a couple of pairs of shorts and stuff like that, but like that's still, like those don't exist. We can't do those broadly, and I want to be able to offer this. If I'm trying to offer this feeling to you every day,
Right.
uh, I want to do it regardless of season as well. I want you to be able to incorporate that feeling into your entire wardrobe. So that's that's the that's the end goal.
I mean,
Or not end goal.
it's great to embrace your inner geek and actually be able to expose your inner geek without, expose, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Poor choice of words there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Express.
Yeah.
Express.
Express.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have a degree in English. You think I would, be able
Yeah.
to form words.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for the redo.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
my pleasure.
This has been James with Geek Astronomy, and I was here with David Volante. Stay geeky.